Yeah, this is Ben Gillette on the Free FM CBS radio, and here with Michael Goudeau. And we usually give a whole list of all the aristocrats that have been on, but the only one we're adding to this list really is Matt, because Trey's been here before.
That's true.
We have Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators and the brains and the voices and the writers and the producers, everything of South Park.
Why was I not on last time? What was going on?
He was in Vegas.
I was in Vegas and you weren't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's just what it took, right?
That's all it took, yeah. That's all it took. I would have taken you alone, too. You're interchangeable.
That's cool, all right.
You know, I answer to the name Teller. If I'm walking, I did that to Teller. He was walking to the casino, and I went up behind him and went, "Excuse me, Penn?" And he went, "No, it's Teller."
We never do that, because we always get people who come up to me all the time and say, "Excuse me, you're Matt Stone, aren't you?" Mm-hmm. And I'll say, "No, I'm not."
And then keep walking.
No, but you look just like him. And I say, "I swear to you, I look nothing like Matt Stone." And then they always walk away.
They never think.
But then they always walk away going, "Man, Matt Stone's an ass."
Yeah, we also do.
Jerk.
We also do. Are you Ben and Jerry? I get that, and
Really?
You're with Ben and Stiller, aren't you? They just mix it all up. They don't care. And you used to play pro ball, did you? I get that. You probably don't get that as much. You don't look,
yeah, I would imagine you get.
You
that
don't
a
look
lot.
like an out to seed football player,
no.
like I do.
Yeah.
So you just been back from your writers. How much of South Park do you write in advance, and how much do you do week?
We don't actually write any of it in advance, but we always have the quote-unquote writers' retreat that Comedy Central will pay for, a nice resort for everyone to go to. And some are really successful and some are not. So some will go and we'll get a bunch of ideas, but we always just keep it, a loose idea. Oh, let's rip on John Edwards. You know what I mean? And like that, we'll come up with that much. And just some jokes of like what we all think about it and everything, and we'll sort of leave it at that, because we need the pressure of, the show's on in a week to actually start writing dialogue and getting structure down and all that. So these are usually a bit more fun. We can just sit around and laugh and not have the pressure of the show being on really soon.
And do you do some sort of overall arc, as they say in the professional show business?
No. We're supposed to.
Yeah.
I mean, we know we're supposed to, but we just don't usually have time. So we end up. It's kind of like the first day of the show production is usually Thursday, and we start with just like, we need 2 funny scenes. And then we start there, and then we really. And what's funny is that Trey and I are also like, I always come out of movies all the time. I'm like, why do they start shooting movies without having a script done? You know what I mean? That's so stupid. You should have a good script. We do it all the time. We never. I don't think we've ever started anything where we have a finished script until we just start doing it. You know what I mean? And somehow we figure it out.
And you're having no trouble at all after 10 years, right?
Actually, no. This last season was kind of the hardest one, and I don't know whether it was a fluke or not, but it was just kind of a weird year. But it was definitely the first time that after this last season we said, maybe 2 writers' retreats. We need to get just a little bit more prepared.
And how many guys do you have on your team?
It goes up and goes back and forth, but usually on the retreat, there's only 6 or 7 of us, and then in the room about the same.
Writers' retreat. I've been working on here. How long have I been doing your...
Stupid. Let's not have any more of this writers' retreat thing.
Yeah, if you only knew where we went.
Where do you go?
Oh, my God. We go to Mexico. We go to Pebble Beach. We go to San Diego.
It's all 5-star dinners and private jets.
4 seasons. And it is.
It's a half hour from your house.
Yeah, exactly. We take a private jet a half an hour away by car.
Boy, it's very different in the world of Showtime from the world of Comedy Central.
Yeah.
But you've been the top show on Comedy Central for what? The whole time you've been on?
10 years, yeah.
I don't know if that's good. Is that good? Top show on Comedy Central?
Well,
that's a big deal?
You're a big fish in a small pond. And that's okay. Jon Stewart hasn't kicked your ass yet?
No, but it's, we're such different shows.
Yeah, but I just mean in terms of they still have to do anything you want?
No, and I mean, so many people, since we've been at Comedy Central, so many people have come and gone. And we've been at Comedy Central longer than any executive there. So we sort of have the right to say whatever we want.
Now, you just turn the show in without them checking it out, is that right?
Well, legally, the legal department checks it out, and the standards department checks it out. But other than that, usually, like the president of the network, he watches it at home.
So it's a big, like the Scientology show is a good example of the legal department. And Garofino, our producer, was basically right after we were in the room, and we're like, and it was the Wednesday before the show was on, we're like, let's do Scientology. Let's just do it. We've been talking about it. Let's do it. Let's go for it. And we had a good idea how to do the show. So then Ann immediately got on the phone with the Comedy Central lawyers and goes, okay, you ready for this? Next week we're doing Scientology. They're like, oh boy. So that was a real one of like basically every time I wrote a page, it got faxed to the lawyers immediately. And they would come back and say, you can't say this, you can't say that, you could say this if you put this word in it too. You know what I mean?
And you were careful. You followed all their advice?
Yeah, because that was for us the funnest part of it was being able to get it on the air and say, haha, you can't sue us. You know what I mean?
We like Barely Legal.
Yeah.
Well, that's...
like the Barely Legal episode. That's an episode that if we did a show, if we did our show like normal shows do, that would have never made it to air because it would have sat on the shelf someplace for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And in that time, the Scientology would have smelled it from down the block and gotten the lawyers involved. But when it aired, once it's out in the world now,
Yeah, they have to make a decision on whether they're helping you or you're helping them.
Right, exactly.
And that's the nice thing about our setup with the show is that John Edwards, when we did, is it Edward or Edwards? Which one?
Edward.
One of us was like a senator or something.
Right.
I can't remember.
I always get confused. But the John Edward episode, he certainly wanted to engage us, but he would be helping us.
Right.
And the same thing with PETA. So the only people you
Right.
have that are going to attack you, there's this kind of balancing act
Right.
that you have where they'll do it. And I love working with the lawyers. I love when the lawyers come and say, you can't say this,
Oh, yeah.
And
Because then
our
you're
lawyers-
onto something, really.
Yeah.
But also, you also say, well, this is, I remember the famous story of Michael O'Donoghue when he was doing with a name like Smuckers, It
right.
Must Be Good, and he had this kind of off color with a name like, and they told me he couldn't do it, so he was coming up with this whole list of things, with a name like Nuns and Orphans with their faces devoured by rats. It must be good. And, art thrives on its limitations. So
Right.
we have lawyers, and you probably don't get this, but we get this because we're on, pay television.
Right.
We get people saying, could you put more obscenity in here?
Really?
Could you call them an
Right.
obscenity instead of using the word liar?
Yeah.
Right.
We
you
get
have
that
to
too.
look at that?
Yeah.
We get that too. They're like, if you make it more extreme, we can defend it more than if it's more. It's like it's too truthful what you wrote. Could you
Make
just
him-
make it goofier? Like
Make him
more
go into
obscene?
court and say he doesn't have sex with dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I get asked this all the time, and now that I want to ask you, I see why they ask me this stupid question, because it is kind of interesting. What episode did you get the most heat from? Of all of them.
It's so funny because heat is the same as, the ones you get the most heat from are also the ones you get the most
Exactly,
accolades for.
exactly.
So I mean,
Scientology probably got the most heat as far as because when it got pulled, that became a huge story.
Yeah, because
And with Isaac quitting because of it, just that.
have you talked to Isaac since then, or
No.
probably not the way you want to say it publicly, but
No, we really haven't. And
He came in right after the episode aired, and we had a meeting, and we sat down and talked to him for a little bit, and he would kind of voice his frustration with the show, and then that was all we've ever heard from him.
You know what? But
We
I tell you,
literally never
we're
heard from him.
forgetting because one of the shows we took the most heat for ever in our 10 years, it was last season when we had Steve Irwin in the Hell episode.
Yeah.
And it was, we were like, are you kidding me? Like, so many people were like, that's your line? After all this stuff we've done, your line is Steve Irwin.
Also,
Like,
we were on the radio show, on this show, talking about this, and they said, what about the grieving widows? And I just said, the grieving widow should not be watching South
Right,
Park.
exactly.
End of
She should be
story.
grieving.
Yeah. That's what she's doing.
What's she doing watching TV?
Sitting Shiva does not include watching South Park. That's not in the Torah anywhere. There's no culture on earth.
But it was one of
that's
those things
part of
where
their grieving.
even some of the people who, usually it's like the people who are upset by things we do are people we never encounter personally anyway. But it was the first time that there were a few people going, hey, that wasn't cool. It's a little too soon. And I said, we said in the show it was too soon.
Yeah,
That was the joke.
But also, there is no too soon.
Yeah,
And
no, exactly.
there are still people that suffered on the Titanic.
Right.
There's some people that have their families died on the Titanic.
Right.
They're still alive.
Right.
But it's all of a sudden it's funny because there's fewer of them.
Right.
And there's you go down Las Vegas Boulevard and there's a big sign that says Titanic sinks nightly.
Right.
And there's a big production number with topless women on the Titanic sinking, and you just know that it has to be that in 50 years there will be a billboard that says 9/11.
Right, exactly.
And there'll be topless dancers as the planes hit the building.
Right.
It's
That's a bad idea. We can make some real money on that.
I smell a movie.